YOLO Julius, it's your girl Raven Chapman, the Omen. Just want to give you a big shout out here from the UK. Ring IQ, you're the man. Thanks so much for your support.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news. Ow!
Okay, we'll start with this. Yesterday, former WBC interim bantamweight champion Tatiana Zrazevskaya returned to action against Fatuma Yazidou, and the prediction stuck. I did decide to go with Tatiana to win this fight, though I thought she'd win on points. She decided to go a step further and got Fatuma out of there. Fatuma, who so clearly wasn't fighting back, was on the receiving end of a lot of punishment in the third round, where the referee waved it off. Just like that, Tatiana is back in the winner's bracket. It's been almost a year since the Jessica Gonzalez fight. The Jessica Gonzalez fight where Tatiana suffered her first professional loss. Tatiana Zrazevskaya likely became accustomed to getting a certain level of respect from the girl opposite the ring. Tatiana Zrazevskaya being an offensively minded fighter, you can see that. You can see that she's a puncher. Not the biggest, but she is mean-spirited. She is spiteful. She's no finesse fighter. Last year, she was so confronted with Mexico's own veteran fighter, Jessica Gonzalez, who had every reason to lose that fight, so far from home, coming right off of losses. But what you saw in the fight is that Jessica Gonzalez's height and her toughness, her volume, it flustered Tatiana Zrazevskaya, who, I reiterate, I think, was accustomed to getting a certain level of respect from the girl opposite the ring, and Jessica Gonzalez didn't give her that. She came forward, throwing punches in bunches, outworking Tatiana, who has now rebounded, gotten herself back in the winner's bracket with this third-round TKO stoppage of Fatuma Yazidou. That fight was almost a year ago. It's been 11 months. Tatiana Zrazevskaya advances to a professional record of 12 wins, 1 loss with no draws, 4 knockouts. This was a bantamweight contest, bantamweight, where Tatiana held the WBC interim title. It appears that she can still make the weight she did for this fight, and the bantamweight division has no shortage of potential opponent options for Tatiana Zrazevskaya. Whether you're talking about contenders and challengers or champions, the bantamweight division is a densely populated weight class, a densely populated division. You're talking about fighters like Tatiana's countrywoman, unbeaten Fatima Dudieva, America's own Melissa Odessa, Rosalinda Rodriguez, Canada's own McKenna Tansley, Australia's own shotgun Shannon O'Connell, and unbeaten Avril Mathy. Several other unbeaten up-and-comers from all around the world climbing up those rank standings alongside the reigning champions, like reigning IBF champion of Australia, Ebony Bridges, the most recognizable face, the most recognizable fighter, the most recognizable champion at this weight. Reigning WBC champion of Mexico, Juliana Luna, reigning 2-division unbeaten champion of Denmark, Dina Thorsland, America's own unbeaten champion, Jamie Mitchell, former WBA champion Shannon Courtenay. The list goes on. There were several paths to an alphabet title that Tatiana can so choose to peruse now that she's back in the winner's bracket, having returned to her winning ways and reintegrated herself into the bantamweight division 11 months after having suffered her first professional loss. And she still retains some of her finer qualities, that she's a fierce fighter and a spiteful puncher. I wouldn't mind seeing her run it back with Jessica Gonzalez. Still plenty of time left in the year to book Tatiana Zrazevskaya another fight. And I think it's only right that she pick up where she left off with Jessica Gonzalez, having the experiences from the first fight to draw from. At least now, she would go into that fight knowing what she's in store for, knowing what she's dealing with, and she might not be flustered the second time out. In any event, there's still plenty of time to book her another fight, whether it's with Jessica Gonzalez or someone else. In any event, Tatiana secured the W better fashion than I thought she would. That puts her back in the mix of everything at 118 pounds. Congratulations to her. In other news, per tweet from Michael Benson, Bob Arum has indicated that Josh Taylor has now vacated his IBF super lightweight world title after previously also vacating the WBA and WBC. As he said, Taylor will be going into the Jack Catterall rematch defending just the WBO belt and the Ring Magazine title, and his lineal status.
That essentially means that with Jeremiah Ponce, who Josh Taylor was ordered to fight,
will now likely take on Puerto Rico's on Subriel Matias on the PBC side of things for the newly vacated red belt, the newly vacated IBF title, which is dubious to say the least because earlier this year, initially, those two guys were ordered to fight for interim status.
what was it, back in May or June?
They went from ordering Ponce versus Matthias for IBF interim status to ordering Ponce to face Josh Taylor straight away.
Somewhat erratic in terms of their mandates, to say the least.
Why didn't they stick to the initial order? IBF final eliminator between Jeremiah Ponce and Subriel Matias. Why did they weeks later decide to order Jeremiah Ponce to take on Josh Taylor straight away?
I said it before and I'm saying it here and now. I'm saying it again. That's not what the IBF normally does in a situation like that.
It's not. What we've seen from the IBF in the past is they'll comb their own rank standings, go down those rank standings until they land on the next highest available and willing contender. That's what they did with Filip Prgovic.
They didn't order Philippe to fight for the IBF title straight away. They went down their own rank standings 2 times.
After fighters like Luis Ortiz and Joseph Parker, Dempsey McCain, many others, several others, after several others turned down the opportunity to box Filip Prgovic in an IBF final eliminator.
It wasn't until China's own Zhilei Zhang stepped up
That the IBF final eliminator was set. And that's not what they just did with Jeremiah Ponce at 140 pounds. They went from ordering him to fight Subriel Matias to ordering Jeremiah to take on Josh Taylor straight away. And it's dubious to say the least. It's bad optics because it's indicative of something.
I would hate to think that the IBF is becoming more and more like the WBA or the WBC, but that appears to be the case.
My honest opinion is something's going on here. Something nefarious. I believe that a clandestine effort behind the scenes, behind the curtain, I believe there's a clandestine effort to get as many alphabet titles as they can over there to the PBC side of things because up until recently they didn't have any. They didn't have any alphabet titles for their 135 and 140 pound fighters to fight for at or around these weights. Any fighter that might be campaigning at 135 and might move up to 140, the guys they already have there at 140 pounds, there were no full-fledged alphabet titles for those fighters to fight for up until recently. And we know that the PBC doesn't want to have to send those guys over there to Top Rank to be content for them and their broadcast partner, ESPN. So they did what they had to do, paid who they had to pay
to get some belts for their boys to fight for.
And with that, I don't think we're going to see an undisputed champion at 140 pounds for a long time. A very long time, because now at least 2 of the 4 alphabet titles have washed up on the shores of PBC Island.
Josh Taylor still is the man to beat at this weight. He still is the Ring Magazine and lineal champion.
He's still WBO champion also, but regardless of who ends up with the WBA or the IBF, don't look for them to pursue a fight with Josh Taylor. Don't look for them to pursue a fight with the winner of Zapata versus Prograis for the newly vacated green belt, the WBC title. This is a division that will stand divided in the near future.
Stand divided and stay divided. Divided by the politics of boxing. It's not good news. It sucks, but that's the way it is.
Men's heavyweight news. I'm sure most of you have heard by now that Arslanbek Makhmudov has inked a co-promotional pact with Top Rank. He's already being promoted by Eye of the Tiger management up there in Canada. Heavyweight knockout extraordinaire Arslanbek the Lion Makhmudov has signed a multi-year co-promotional contract with Top Rank, who will work in conjunction with Camille Estefan's Eye of the Tiger.
Gloria Estefan?
Rhythm is gonna get you.
And if it doesn't, Arslanbek Makhmudov will.
Makhmudov, born in Russia and now residing in Montreal, Canada, has knocked out all 14 of his professional opponents, including 10 in the first round. The co-promotional agreement will see Makhmudov fight on Eye of the Tiger promoted shows in Canada and on Top Rank and ESPN cards. Makhmudov will defend his NABF IBF belt against veteran danger man Carlos Takam on Friday, September 16th at the Cabaret du Casino de Montreal. Makhmudov versus Takam headlines a loaded fight card that will stream live and exclusively in the United States on ESPN+.
This looks to be a similar arrangement to the arrangement that Top Rank has with Yvonne Michelle.
Jim Promotions, yet another Canadian-based promotional outfit north of the border. They don't necessarily show all of Yvonne Michelle Promotions' shows, you understand.
No, they don't show all of them, but they do show some.
I am fortunate to work with top promoters in the world, Makhmudov said. This represents an important step towards achieving my goal of becoming a world champion. Stefan said, I am very pleased and look forward to a long-term partnership with Top Rank, a force for decades in boxing. We look forward to adding to the legacy with high-level shows in Canada on ESPN Plus and crowning world champions together. Arslanbek Makhmudov has true heavyweight knockout power, and at 6'6", 260 pounds, he is a force of nature inside the ring, said Top Rank chairman Bob Arum. I look forward to working with Camille and his team at Eye of the Tiger to help Arslanbek achieve his dream of becoming heavyweight champion of the world.
You might have heard the name of Arslanbek Makhmudov thrown around a couple of times here on this channel.
An unbeaten up-and-comer based out of Canada that shows a lot of promise, and he's got some hell of a litmus test ahead of him next month on the 16th. He's going to be taking on Danger Man from Cameroon, Carlos Takam, seasoned veteran Carlos Takam, veteran fighter who's shared the ring with anyone from Joseph Parker to Derek Chisora to Anthony Joshua.
Carlos Takam has been in there with a lot of people, and you have to compete at a certain level in order to make it past him, in order to beat him.
I have to admit, Makhmudov versus Takam next month, it's a good little fight. It's to my fancy.
And it's a genuine opportunity for Arslanbek to make a splash against a familiar face.
Arslanbek Makhmudov, in spite of his age, he's about 33 years old, he does represent the next wave of heavyweights, the next generation, so to speak, in spite of his age. He has been flying somewhat low on the radar, and this deal with Top Rank could go a long way towards getting him the exposure that he and his fights have been missing, provided that he can stay in character next month, provided that he can keep being the force of nature that he has been up until this point.
Yeah, because if he goes in there and loses to Carlos Takam, you can fucking forget it.
Pretty sure that will void the deal.
Yeah, I didn't hear the Top Rank intends to co-promote all of Eye of the Tiger's fighters. This seems to be geared towards promoting or co-promoting Arslanbek
Makhmudov!
him specifically, and anyone fortunate enough to fight on his undercard up there in Canada.
And we are going to talk more about that undercard as the fight date approaches.
You may not realize it, but little by little, the next wave of unbeaten up-and-comers, it's already here with Joe Joyce and Arslanbek Makhmudov, Jalalov,
Jared Anderson and that Torres kid.
Top Rank has their foot in the door with Arslanbek Makhmudov and Jared Anderson and that Torres kid. They've got their foot in the door, the future heavyweight division.
Hi guys, Tyson Fury, aka the Gypsy King. I've just seen Joshua lose for the second time to Usyk out of his depth. However, England has been relieved of its belts yet again, as usual. But there is a remedy and a solution that I can suggest. If you want those belts back, then send in the Gypsy Barbarian of England. Come on! Send me in. I will relieve the Ukrainian Dosser of his belts like I did the last Ukrainian Dosser. But it's not going to be cheap. If you want the best, then you've got to pay. It's going to be very expensive. So get your fucking checkbook out, and I will relieve that Ukrainian Dosser of them belts. You know.
Tyson Fury fancies himself the king of today's heavyweight division, and I can't say as I share in that sentiment, given the amount of angling it's taken to get Tyson Fury to this point, robbing John McDermott of a decision he so clearly deserved, skipping out on fights with Kubrat Pulev and Alexander Ustinov, using Nandrolone in order to secure the W against Christian Hammer of all people, and the 2.5-year hiatus he took after procuring 3 of the 4 alphabet titles at this weight.
It was Dan Canastota that said Tyson Fury can't call himself the king of heavyweights unless he fights Alexander.
Dan Canoli of CompuBox, and I do share in that sentiment. That's what it's going to take. It's going to take for Tyson Fury to beat Alexander Usyk to really add to his legacy, because the stinker with Vladimir Klitschko and the bubble he's been in the last 3 years with Deontay Wilder.
That doesn't cut it, not for me.
Tyson Fury has made it a point in his career to make off like a bandit as many times as he can. And that's what helped him get to this point, to where he's an unbeaten fighter who, by all rights, should have a professional loss already in the column, but he doesn't.
So wait a minute, he doesn't want to fight for free anymore?
No, that was only in reference to Anthony Joshua. In reference to Alexander Usyk, he says it's going to be expensive and they need to get their checkbooks out. This is the guy who says he doesn't care about money.
You believe him?
He's a professional prize fighter, a professional pugilist. Of course I don't believe him, but that doesn't stop Tyson Fury from trying to hoodwink the boxing community into thinking that he's this
He pretends to be a Spartan, but he's more of a businessman.
And he's made it his business over the years to use quite a bit of angling to get himself to this point. Now, both he and Alexander Usyk, a no fuss, no muss, no nonsense kind of customer. They are the last 2 men, the last 2 champions standing. And all the pressure is on Tyson Fury to deliver, because we know that Alexander wants it.
Simple, really. You ain't got Deontay Wilder or Anthony Joshua to distract people with anymore.
They are out of the world title picture. It's just you and him now.
You and Usyk.
Tyson Fury's done a really good job of preserving his unbeaten record, getting himself to this point over the years, getting away with doing things that Anthony Joshua wouldn't get away with.
But the time for distractions and deflections, it really is over.
Tyson Fury is a skilled boxer. Make no mistake. I cannot take that away from him. And perhaps he really does have some kind of bipolar disorder, which can reconcile his constant contradictions and his scatterbrain antics.
But being bipolar ain't a get-out-of-jail-free
You
card.
did get a gift decision over John McDermott. You did get caught with Nandrolone in your system for the Christian Hammer fight. You did bail out on being a champion, a reigning, defending champion.
And I suppose that UCAT investigation had nothing to do with that.
Quite possible for 2 things to be true at the same time. Tyson Fury might very well have some kind of mental issue, but that's not why he retired for 2.5 years.
The con man.
Staying in a bubble with Deontay has not convinced me that he really is this era's premier heavyweight, needing this much angling to get to this point. No. He's going to have to beat Usyk.
Because it took a lot to keep you unbeaten, and it took a lot to get you to this point.
Not here because you really are the best. You're here because you're creative.
You let AJ skip out on fights and bail out for 2.5 years. He'd probably be unbeaten right now, too.
On the heels of this weekend's heavyweight title fight, the most I can say when it comes to Tyson Fury and his portion of the story is, yeah, those eggs need more bacon.
Because I still think Fury's a con man.